That's just not the story of everybody, but it was for me, thankfully. So it gave me some freedom to really go mess some stuff up in a safe place, really. I don't think practically it has to be you're an entrepreneur if you started a company. I don't think that's true at all. What's your vision? It's going to happen. Now, maybe not yet, maybe not that fast, maybe not that direction, but the vision's going to happen. Let's see how to do it. So that's really what has allowed me to have any form of success.
What does it take to stay the course as an entrepreneur for the long haul? How do we use both our failures and our successes to grow us as business owners? And how do we keep coming back to the work ahead when the bright and shiny wears off? This is the Art of Succession podcast, and I'm your host, Barrett Young. My guest today is Jason Blumer, the CEO of two companies, Blumer CPAs, which specializes in design, marketing, and creative agencies, and Thriveal, a network of entrepreneurial CPA firms that connect, learn, and grow together. Jason's also the host of two podcasts, the Businessology Show since 2013 and the Thrivecast since 2011. He and his chief operating officer, Julie, run their businesses, their virtual companies out of Greenville, South Carolina, where I've had the pleasure of visiting many times over the years for their annual conference, Deeper Weekend. Jason, welcome to the Art of Succession.
Cool, Barrett. Do you know, man, how special this is to be on this show with you? I have known you forever. We have been peers and colleagues in fighting through this incredible work we do for clients. So I am pumped to be here so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for being a guest. I can't believe we've known each other almost 15 years and never done a podcast episode together.
That is wild.
So we've known each other for a while. This show is about succession planning, and this is a time of your life before I knew you that we're going to dig into here. So okay. I want to dig into taking over your dad's firm. So this is pre-Thriveal. Just give me some times and dates and how did that happen?
Yeah, so as you know, I celebrated 30 years of my career last year. I was talking about that at Deeper Weekend, which was kind of weird and surreal for me. But I did get into public accounting in 98, went to kind of a regional firm, have always been entrepreneurial, as you know, Barrett, and I wanted to do things my own way. So, I was in a firm and I thought I could do this better than them. Turns out it's a little bit harder than I thought it was. And my dad had started our firm in 97. So he started a year before I went into public, 97. And he bought just a little bookkeeping business. Okay. And he was a CPA also. He just wanted something small. And then 2003, so I guess 5 years after he started, I had been at that other firm, and I said, "Hey, Dad, I want to come run my own firm. So I want to run my firm with you." And my wife and I were living in another city at that time, so we moved back to Greenville, South Carolina, which was our home. And my dad said, "Come on." He said, "I don't have any money to pay you." He said, "So I have some money saved up from tax season, so I can give you a little bit of that. But you're going to have to go get your own clients." I'm like, "Cool. I'm not scared." So in May 2003, I started leading our firm, Blumer CPAs, with my dad.
Okay. So
long time ago.
So your dad started this firm or acquired this firm late in his career then? Yeah. Like with retirement already on the horizon?
Yeah. So, for the succession part, my dad was an accountant, but he never was a CPA. And so when I graduated college in 1993, I went to start getting my CPA, and he wanted to get his too. So he and I attended Becker together. We would travel up to Charlotte, North Carolina. Actually, me and my dad and my brother-in-law, who is also a CPA, he runs a big firm in Charleston. So we three went to take Becker in Charlotte, and we just listened to Newt Becker tapes. Old school people will know Newt Becker. And so, we got our CPA together. Which was a trip. While my dad was running his firm, I was at another firm, and then we eventually came back together, which was pretty cool. So as we finished Becker, we got our CPA. I think my brother-in-law and my dad both beat me getting the CPA exam. It took me a while. So I was trying to pass audit, and I had never audited in my life. When I was taking it, I did go become an audit manager at that other firm. But my dad started a very, very small firm, bookkeeping firm, and that was a beautiful platform and foundation for me to come work with my dad to build something, to build on top of it. Okay. So here we are.
I never knew that story. That's awesome. My dad also was an accountant, and when I started taking the CPA exam, he briefly considered it too. But he'd always been in private. He'd never had any public accounting experience. And I'm like, Dad, you've got 30-something years of experience as controllers for construction companies. Anybody who thinks CPA adds to that is nuts.
Oh, yeah. Well, my dad did that. He was a controller for like a large paving company. And he's like, I want to get my CPA. And he wanted to own his own business. So he went and did it awesome. With me.
So, yeah. Very cool. So then by the time you wanted to come join your dad's firm, then that was the intent from the very beginning. It's not like you worked with him for 2 or 3 years and then he decided to retire, right?
No. I wanted to go run the firm with my dad. I wanted to eventually take over the firm. And I had a lot to learn. So I worked with my dad for a number of years before we started doing some transition, and he would give me some stock and things like that. And so that took a little while. Eventually I just kind of started growing the firm, took it in different directions, started playing with pricing and consulting and niching and trying to learn my way through those things. And then he eventually said, this is becoming your thing. And I think I'm ready to be done. Cause he was a tax season guy. He would do taxes. Well, he did it all: taxes, accounting, payroll. We did every bit of it when you're a small firm. But then he, like most people who have done it as long as he did, you just get done, and he's like, you can have it now.
I think he retired right before you founded Thriveal. So like 2009, 2010, I think.
You know what? I can't even remember, Bear. That might be something Julie may remember, but I can't remember when did he retire. I can't remember when it was, but it was probably around the time started Thriveal. Thriveal was the fall of 2010, I think. I had been blogging at Thriveal a few years before that while I was working with my dad. I think that's right.
You came in 2003, not as a partner at this point, but kind of like an employee earning your way into ownership.
Yeah.
And worked with him for about 6 years, gradually becoming more and more owner of the company during that time.
Yeah. Yeah. Over time. Yeah. And and just like any kind of family succession, it's pretty cool. I mean, it can be different working with a family member. It can also be good in a lot of ways because there's a lot of leeway for you to kind of change things. So that's what I did.
Prior to joining your dad, other than this, I want to run a firm, like what did you know about this? Was it called Blumer CPAs or was it?
No. Then it was H. Marcus Blumer CPA PC.
Okay. Very traditional name.
Yep. My dad's name.
What did you know about his successes a bit? Like, what did you know? Did you know what you were stepping into at that point? Other than he didn't have cash to pay you anything yet?
No. Dude, I didn't do no planning, man. Okay. I didn't know nothing. I'm like, Dad, I'm out of here, man.
Okay.
I'm out of this firm. Can I come work with you? That's it. You're
at a traditional CPA firm. You know what they do. You know you can do it better. You see another traditional CPA firm that your dad owns. And you're like, I'm taking over your firm, Dad.
Yeah, I'm taking over your firm. For me, it was, I just want to go run my own firm. I just had always wanted to do that, run my own business. So my dad was an opportunity to do that. And my dad he would welcome me to come do that, which is cool. So I did not know anything about doing any of that.
Okay. Was retirement already on his radar then at that point, or did he expect to be there for another 15 years with you?
I think he knew he would probably retire at some point. I don't think he was thinking about it then.
Okay.
But probably shortly after I came in, he probably started thinking, this is something, that I could hand over to Jason. And I was pretty upfront about sharing that with him too. So I know, in generational firms, sometimes the parent is pushing something on a child or not doing that. Mm-hmm. My dad didn't do that. Sometimes the child is wanting to move faster maybe than the older generation wants to go. I think I drove a lot of that. So I would have conversations with my dad, wanting to own, wanting to lead it. So I was more upfront, and my dad was fine with that. He trusted me, and I was still working with him, learning a lot from him. So
okay, great. How was the pace of the? I mean, you said you drove those conversations, but you stepped into this company. You want to run it. It's clients you did not sell to,
right,
that you did not bring in.
Right.
In some of the cases, it's probably clients your dad didn't even sell to originally.
True.
Like he
That's
acquired
true.
them from a previous one.
Yeah.
So how maddening is that when you step into something and you're just like, I have this dream and you guys are not aligned with the dream. But I don't own the place yet, so I've got a baby steps kind of thing. So
yeah, no, it is maddening, and and it was maddening for me, but maddening for that client base too. And I know it was, and I mean, some of them spoke up. My dad gave me a lot of freedom, so I started really, getting a logo. We needed a logo, so I got a logo. I got letterhead. It was 4-color letterhead. It's expensive letterhead. So I was getting all kind of letterhead. And then I would start putting a lot of the tax returns on this fancy letterhead paper with really cool 4 colors. And the clients, but see, at the same time, I've got these fancy letterhead and I'm printing off these nice tax returns with a cover letter on letterhead, binding these things in coil bound binders. I just thought, man, we're going to do this right, man. And these were not clients that really I should have been doing this for, but I didn't know. I was just like making the place really look good. And so at the same time, I was raising prices because, I'm like, y'all are going to pay more. This is all, the prices were way too low. And some of them said something. They're like, I like the way your dad did things. He didn't charge us for all this colorful letterhead, and I'm like, I'm gonna fire you if you say that again. So
don't you see the value inherent in 4-color letterhead?
Right, 4-color letterhead. How can you not want me to double your tax return price from $100 to $200? Come on, pony up, pony up the cash. I need $200 for this 1040.
So you have moved since then away from 1040s. Had you already started to move in that direction before your dad retired, or is it just like we have to, I have to make my dad happy. I have to not rock the boat too much until it's in your own hands? Or where along that journey did you decide the clients we have don't align with the dream? I can't do, 2,000-3,000 of these every single year in order to make this work. Yeah. How did you come to that decision?
Yeah. Well, that was over time. I think when I first started running the firm, I don't think I really knew about the strategy of culling clients. Okay. I thought they just stayed there. What I was doing, I was actively going and getting my own clients. Okay. And so the firm did pretty rapidly change to be clients I had brought in that knew me, and I don't know, this is probably the first time I'm kind of saying this. What that probably did is gave me comfort that we got all this new revenue. It was coming in at different prices. I was okay with letting go of some of the other clients. And now I would let my dad, I would run that by him to make sure we did that. But I think over time, they just kind of dwindled away. And then eventually the clients I brought in became more of what the firm was than what it was before I got there, just over time. And I don't know what that shift was, but then I think I would feel more comfortable going, I'm not doing a tax return for $100. I'm just not going to do that. So, hey, you're going to need to pay twice, double the price or something like that back then. So it just took time. to start swapping that client base a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We're just like one more question about this, and then we'll move forward to what you've done since acquiring. Did you ever butt heads with your dad on something where he really kind of second guessed, or there was just uncertainty there of whether you were the right person to take over this firm?
Probably. I bet my dad had thoughts that he didn't share with me. So I'm betting he's probably like, what is he doing? But he was really trusting to let me try new things. And I was trying a lot of stuff. And I was wrecking some stuff. There were some things I was not doing right. But I did learn a lot through that process. I learned a lot about how to lead, how to sell, how to bring in clients. Sometimes I did that right. Sometimes I didn't. But my dad really never is like, no way, we are not doing that. So I didn't have that contentious relationship. And I know generationally, sometimes that happens. Sometimes people have to deal with the fact that, that older generation is just flat out not going to let the younger generation do what they're doing. But that was not the case, for my dad. He completely just said, do whatever. But man, I bet there were times he was like, what is he doing? And he just didn't say that. He encouraged me and kind of let me do that. And I would run those things by him. I'm like, hey, Dad, I'm thinking about doing this. I think it's really important. What do you think if we go ahead and try this? And he would always be on board. So
that's awesome. That's a great environment to cut your teeth on entrepreneurialism, to get that kind of trust.
Well, and that doesn't always happen. I know that's just not the story of everybody, but it was for me, thankfully. So it gave me some freedom to really go mess some stuff up in a safe place, really.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you've been instrumental for me that way in my career as well, just to realize failure is not final.
Yeah.
I think early on, you gave me this idea that this is a laboratory.
Yeah.
And we're just experimenting with things, and some things fail, and failure is part of a lab experiment of you learn from it and you move forward with it.
Yeah.
It's not like the end of the world. We're not, it's not brain surgery or anything like that. So
no. Yeah. Yeah.
So you've always seen yourself as an entrepreneur. I know that there's a struggle. I had this struggle early on that you're not a real entrepreneur unless you start a company, right? But you've been acting like an entrepreneur from day one, walking into a company that you didn't start.
Yeah.
And that's the idea behind the Art of Succession podcast is entrepreneurs, it's a mindset. It's not because you're 30 years in.
Yeah. You're
20 plus years into running Blumer CPA.
Mm-hmm.
How it started no longer matters.
That's true.
It's how it's continued to change over the years.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's true. I think I think entrepreneurship is more a description of a person and how they act, how they pursue value in new markets, and how they take risks and learn from a lot of those risks. So I think a lot of that is really important. I don't think practically it has to be you're an entrepreneur if you started a company. I don't think that's true at all. I think a lot of times that does happen, right? An entrepreneur, they just can't help themselves. They start companies. But that doesn't always have to be the case. And you can still be an entrepreneur and lead something somebody else started a long time ago. Heck yeah. Yeah.
And in our profession, we certainly know people who used to be entrepreneurial, but then they fell out of practice, and they
totally.
20 years later, they're coasting in all the innovative things they did way back at the beginning. So,
heck yeah.
All right. So I ask all my guests, what's the most important thing that you hope that I ask you? And so you wrote down, how can you stay the course long term when things get difficult in your business? So it's this idea of longevity for you.
Yeah.
So now let's fast forward a little bit. It's 2009, 2010. You're by yourself at this point. Dad's out of the business.
Yeah.
You've now successfully completed your goal.
Right.
Now what?
Yeah, right.
So why is this so important to you, this idea of longevity? Staying the course.
Yeah. It's probably that's probably different for each person. I think that happens to be one of my particular things. When I shared at Deeper Weekend, I was 30 years in, and I said I'm going to go another 30 years. And I know that stuff freaks people out, but I think I probably have not always been like that. I probably haven't always necessarily believed that or thought that. I think just I've done it so long now over time. I see the people I admire, and when I look up to people, people like you, Barrett, when I see, you and I have walked this journey for well over a decade, just kind of watching you stay committed to a path, whatever it was, and that path changes for everybody. It goes back and forth. So I think there came a point where I started to see people who commit to things long term and they don't give up no matter what. They're the ones who end up being on top in 30 years, in 40 years. Like when the books of the people I'm reading, it's like, these people have been doing it for 40 and 50 years. I'm like, that's the people I'm looking up to. And so longevity started to become for me, that's what I want to do. Like if I can help people now, I can really help them 20 years from now. And I think I share some of that, even at the conference. I'm like, 30 years in, I'm actually now able to really help people. I know things to do to help them. Think about what I can do after 20 years. Like I can't imagine being able to say I'm 50 years into a career and I can help you. So I don't think longevity is big for everybody. Some people want to retire. I'm not a retire guy. Now, that doesn't mean my life won't have to look different. As I get older, I won't be able to do the same things I'm doing. So that will have to change and tweak, and I don't know what that'll look like. But I still want to be providing value. I'm just not a guy who will retire and then not work. It's just not my deal. It is the deal for some people. It's just not mine. So I think that's a real personal thing to me. It's not a requirement. Now, of course, in Thriveal, I push people to do it. Come on, y'all do it with me. But that's part of my job.
You don't want to be lonely.
Yeah, I don't want to be lonely
at 75 years
right,
old.
I'm going to be this creaky old cranky butthole guy. I want some other buttholes, creaky old people, men and women with me hanging out doing it too. So I don't know. I think that's me. This longevity thing is a personal thing.
Okay. Has that affected how you think about succession planning, or do you and your partners still have plans for if you can't make it that long? How does that impact it?
Man, that's a great question.
Because if you had gone to your dad in 2003 and your dad was like, well, I've still got another 40 years ahead of me, so I don't know what you're talking about.
You're exactly right. That's a good point. If my dad had said that, dude, I'm going to have a 60-year career, I would have been like, well, crap, now what am I going to do? I would have figured something else out. But yeah, definitely. Julie and I talk about that as we're in our 50s, kind of getting up into our upper 50s. We're having to start thinking about that. We're getting to a stage where we can't work as hard as we used to. I mean, at this stage, you can still work pretty hard, and we do have to work pretty hard. But yeah, longevity, it's like if I'm going to go into my 80s and 90s doing this, which it ain't going to work out the way I think it is. I know that, but I have that goal. I'm going to things are going to have to change. And it does change your longevity. Because if you're going to retire at 65, I've got 12 more years. But if you're like, I've got 30 more years, you're going to have to work differently. I'm going to have to continue to change and be creative, which is something I love. I love to do. It's like, cool. What do I get to do in 10 years that I'm actually not doing now? It's going to be creative and new, and I'm looking forward to making that up. That'll be awesome.
Yeah, and I think you and Julie will definitely make the changes necessary to get you to a point. right? Because I think a lot of preparers in our profession, they're like, I'm going to work until I die, but they keep doing the same thing year after year after year.
We're not going to do
and
that.
You've seen in 21 years since joining this company how things have shifted. You're no longer the one doing the 1040s.
Right.
You're no longer even the one doing the partnership returns, the S corp returns. You've built a team around you that allows you and Julie to do the consultative work that you enjoy doing. That builds on your 30 years of experience in the profession. So at 80, it's not like, how am I going to get all these tax returns done by April 15th kind of thing.
Right.
So.
That's right. Yeah. Well, but that's a point. The longevity of transition means, and again, I'm not an expert at this. We're going to have to start learning about this, but the longevity of a 60-year career is going to have to transition and change. Yeah. I mean, it has to, because you're right. If you did, if you worked 80 hours a week doing tax returns when you're 55, you're not going to be able to do it when you're 85. If you still want to keep working, then you have to have changed something. And so we're going to change stuff. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about some changes. You've been very open with the community about the need for Thriveal about halfway, 15 years ago at this point now. You've just taken over your dad's firm. You have all these ideas. You don't have a lot of people to bounce them off of. You have a blog that you're writing. You're on Twitter. A lot of people were on Twitter back then trying to figure out how CPAs use Twitter.
Yeah.
So you send out a call, you post a video and say there needs to be this community for like-minded CPAs where we can talk about this kind of stuff and we can share. Technically, we're competitors, but the market is so huge and there are so few of us who are doing it this way that we're going to grow together. And I know you've talked about this, that was a mental health necessity for you at that time too.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny, I still have that video. And man, why anybody joined Thriveal? I was looking at myself, not recently, just recently, and it was like, wow, I look like a little baby. That's crazy. But yeah, I just needed help. Yeah. I was like, please, y'all, we've got to be together. And I don't know, there was not a lot of planning or anything around it. The internet was there. It was really easy to do a webinar type thing and launch it and have people register. We had platforms for doing that. I guess 15 years ago when we were planning those kind of things, or not quite 15. It was for me. I was looking for a formal way for us to all be together. And I mean, Barrett, you've been in Thriveal, I don't know if longer than anybody now.
Almost.
That's in Thriveal. But it wasn't a paid community. It was like, we just went to a LinkedIn forum and said, let's figure this out together. And so it really was a roots movement to just help each other. The thing, and when it became paid, that was a hard thing to do because it hurt some people, and I get the perspective they had, but things get big enough and so big that you can't devote time to them unless they can take some of your devotion away from your firm, and that started to happen to me. So anyway, a lot of those changes were hard on me, hard to figure out, but we kept pushing through it somehow.
Yeah, a couple big choices. Like, it became a paid community. It became for CPA firm owners specifically, like vendors weren't in it. Wannabe.
Yep.
Sorry, not wannabes. Prospective or like desiring to someday run a CPA firm that, there was a barrier to entry, but you knew in order to give it your attention, it had to, replace the income of the time, the cost benefit that you're giving up over here in your firm. So.
Yeah. And that's how entrepreneurship works, right? It's like, this thing's got to produce some level of income, and then in return, I'm going to give my devotion to that organization. So that organization better be valuable to a market you're working in. And if it's not valuable, then people aren't going to pay the price. So pricing has a lot to do with a market recognizing that what you're trying to do is valuable. So there were a lot of lessons in that, trying to price the community and going, am I valuable? Not believing you're valuable, fighting through all of that mental trash that we all have to fight. It's like, who am I to put a price on this? And man, some people were harsh and mean about it, privately, thankfully. But I had to wash through that.
And then the other big shift in your company came a couple years later when you brought on a partner. I would say those are probably the two biggest ones that I've witnessed. Is I can't do this by myself. I need peers. And now you're like, I can't do this by myself. I need a partner in the firm. Talk about that just a little bit, because a lot of entrepreneurs / founders were like, I know how to run a firm. And so we just step into doing that. And then you get a couple years in there and you're like, wow, I don't know how to run every aspect of running a firm.
No. So. Well, Julie and I would counsel people to do partnership completely differently than we did it. So that might be true for every partnership.
Talk about that a little more. So for people who don't have the context.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I had never had a partner. It was my dad. My dad's like, man, I'm cool. Do whatever. I had that great support from my dad. That wasn't really my partner telling me to change things or challenging me to do stuff. Actually, what I needed from my dad was what he gave me, which was that freedom to try things in a safe space. So he really was the place where I could blossom and practice safely. And I did fail a lot. And there was no backlash from my dad for any failure, which was pretty cool. So I felt that freedom. And so probably he was that foundation of the place where I really let my creativity blossom because I knew I was going to be safe. That's an amazing place to be. Julie had never been a partner or a business owner. She had just finished homeschooling 3 of her kids. And they were close together in age. So her and her husband figured out these 3 kids are going to be in college at the same time. This is not good. And so they're both, they were talking and said, you got to get a job. And so Julie is an accountant. And we knew a friend, me and my wife knew a friend that she knew that was her friend. And we were looking for somebody to come in, do operations and admin stuff, kind of help us with some admin stuff.
Not a partner at this point.
No way. I had no clue. I was just like, well, I'll tell you what was really happening. Some people may know this is I was neglecting the firm's books and stuff like that, so we're getting like 6 months behind. I think I don't know, shared this at Deeper Weekend. Sometimes Julie's like, what is he saying on the stage? Good Lord. But sometimes I mouth off and I need to be more careful, but maybe I will when I'm 80. I'll get worse then probably. That'll be really bad. Barrett's like, oh, I'm staying. I got to see that. No, she came in, and she was needing a job, and we were needing somebody to catch up the books of the firm before anybody found out. It's like, hey, just keep it quiet, but we're like way behind on our billing and our reconciliations. I don't know what we're doing or if we're making money. So if you can catch these things up, that'd be helpful. And she was an accountant, so that was not hard for her. And she's a brilliant person. And so, she had been out of working for 20 something years. So she comes back to this world of complete technology, cloud, and she's like, oh, this is how they run firms now. It's like, well, not everything we're doing is how firms operate. So she got in there and just kind of taught herself. I didn't train her very well. I didn't know how to train anybody. We had some employees. I probably didn't train them well. But she came in, started just, looking through the financial statements, trying to figure out how to train herself. Back then we were using, I think we had just started using Bill.com back then. She was trying to figure out how to use that platform. How to get the bank statements. And I was like, here's the bank login. So I don't know, pull them in the best you can. So anyway, she did a great job of all that. And Jennifer, my wife, was doing admin. I think she may have been doing some marketing then. I can't remember. She did do more specific marketing later. But Julie just kept doing more and more, and really just, it's like, wow, she can do anything. So anything I needed help with, she could do. And then just started getting her advice and help on even just kind of operational things. Like, should we do it this way? What do you think about this? So she was just one of those people that was kind of unusually able to do a lot of very specific things. And about that time, I started looking for a partner. I was like, I need a CPA partner. I flew around the country and actually met a few people that I knew. And I was like, I think I'm ready for a partner. I can't do what I'm doing now.
Okay.
Without help.
Why a partner, and why not just a highly paid employee that's able to review tax returns and do CPA stuff? Great question, Barrett. I don't think I knew to ask that. And a lot of people ask me, how did you know? Because you don't have to go to a partner. Mm-hmm. And we would probably suggest most people, you don't necessarily default into partnership. That is not a default relationship you get into at all. Yep.
As you know this. So I think I just didn't know better. Because to me, I was like, I need somebody to stay up and worry about this the way I stay up and worry about it. I had already had Julie as an employee, mm-hmm. so I already knew she cared. So cared deeply. Mm-hmm. She was always already technically sound, able to give advice, able to help me. She was not client facing then, but able to help me with anything, help me and Jennifer with anything we needed in the firm. And I think I just didn't know better, but I did say, hey, I need somebody to care about this the way I do, not just do a lot of things in smart ways, but to really care. And I thought that was a partner. And so I was looking for a partner, and then I went, wait, I think Julie is my partner. She's my partner. And it just dawned on me one day.
So you were at the time, it sounds like, looking for yourself out there. Another CPA who's entrepreneurial, who's going to help me run this company, who cares about this stuff. And you lucked into an employee who's got complementary skills.
Right.
Because I think that's why partnerships, you would advise against them, is because so many people look for themselves.
You're right.
We can both go out and close deals. We can double the size of the firm. We can both do the same.
You're exactly right. That's what I didn't know. But I found somebody that was a compliment to me, mm-hmm. and in many ways opposite from me. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I'll try to beg her to speak in front of Deeper Weekend, which people want her to do, and she's like, "Bro, that is not my stage, man. Yeah. I am fine where I'm at."
There are a lot of integrators in that audience that want to hear from an integrator.
That's right. They're like, hey, Jason, we hear you a lot,
we
bro.
get enough of the visionary. Show us how it actually works.
Yeah. And so, the first time I told her, I'm like, Julie, if you speak, they're really going to get a lot of value. It's just a different perspective. And she did speak, the first year, I can't remember. And people were like, yeah, I got some more questions for Julie. Mm-hmm. And I knew it would be valuable. But yeah, I didn't know how to do that well. I didn't know how to search for a partner. Mm-hmm. So she was a complete compliment, and in many ways, like I said, the opposite. And that's when you get. I think that's when you become a powerhouse. That's actually when Julie says, "It's cool when you can have two people join and they become exponential, instead of mm-hmm. two people that join that just double their ability." Right. Yep. And I think that's true. Julie and I could exponentially build a very large organization, and not just double, because it wasn't her doing tax returns, me doing tax returns. We took on pretty early that visionary integrator role. Really within the first year, we leaned really hard into those roles. Mm-hmm. And that's when we learned, we learned how this is supposed to work, which was really cool.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the problem with partnerships, is you end up having multiple firms under the same roof because everybody's duplicating the same efforts, and
exactly.
you end up having, I like this kind of client. I like this kind of client. We'll figure out a way to serve them all.
Yeah. And we know organizations don't really work, ones that grow large don't really work that way. They have to be really centered in on foundational values, core values, a purpose. That organization has to have a purpose. All the leadership have to be on the same page about the purpose of this organization and its existence in the marketplace. And that's what the complementary partnership can give you, is a single combined powerhouse organization. It's not two or three disparate fiefdoms or kingdoms. And you know all this. You've been in the profession long enough and are in partnership. And so you can see the power of combining than doing your own thing.
Mm-hmm. So what advice would you give to somebody who's been their first year, their second year maybe, and what caution would you give them about partnering if they feel overwhelmed? And then what encouragement would you give them to maybe to the other side who feel like they have to do it all themselves? Because I've been in both situations. At one time, partnership was the furthest thing from my mind because I saw it as just like doubling myself and giving up control for the right to do that.
Totally.
So what caution would you give to somebody who's immediately like, I want to do this, but I have to have a partner? Good. Let's start with that one.
Yeah. Well, I think anybody starting a partnership should have an immediate caution. So that's the first thing you should be cautious about it. Practically, we would say, and again, I didn't know to do this right, but it had happened that I had worked with Julie for 2 or 3 years. Mm-hmm. 3 years, I think, something like that. 3 years. So I knew her. I knew how she worked. I knew how deeply she actually already cared about Thriveal and Blumer. Mm-hmm. She was intrigued by them and already cared. So the caution is that you have to really know somebody, and so you need to go slow. So things like buying a firm and then the people come in are automatically partners is pretty dangerous if you just don't know them. Mm-hmm. You have to know people. And that's going to look different. So I can't put a number on it. It's got to be 3 years or it's got to be 2. It's going to be different for different people. Because as you get in a relationship with people, you know this, you learn more about them as you go into harder places, good places. You go, oh, I didn't know that was a side of you. Is that, I didn't know that was part of the deal. You want to really try to hit all of those bumpy places and all of the great places. So you can really know what you're doing and what you're dealing with. And I think Julie and I didn't fully know, but we had worked together. So the caution is going too fast, I think, is super dangerous, mm-hmm. super, super bad, because breaking up a partnership is just heartbreaking. Mm-hmm. That's heart-wrenching. I'm sure you've seen it. We've seen it. It's just really tough emotionally on people to see that happen. But I think they're also, for the good side of the partnership, I think it also, the right partner, if you do that at the right time, can take you to places that you just can't go on your own. So there is a time when partnership lets you do things you cannot do by yourself. And that's super cool. It's super cool to know that person that's partnering with you, you can't do it without them. And so it gives you, an amazing respect to go, actually what I want to do has to start becoming a little bit subservient to what we want to do together. Mm-hmm. And that's hard for everybody to go, that's not what I want to do. But as a partnership, it has to be, what are we trying to do together? And if you're in the partnership with the right person, that is, you took time, you're okay giving up and going, you know what? I don't want to do the thing I want to mm-hmm. do. If that gets in the way of what we're going to do together, which is also awesome, then I'm going to give up a little bit of this. And that's when you can really be great, I think. So there's a caution and an encouragement that there's a time when you just can't go far enough without actually getting a partner, I think.
Interesting. Yeah, I know you've changed my mind on this over the years, watching your journey from the outside looking in. But it's this idea that creativity needs constraint. And you've said, I am so much more free now that there is a fence around this yard of what I can go explore versus the things that are just off the table.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess, and probably some people may not always perceive that, right? But Julie is extremely creative, and she's even changed more about, in her role as an integrator, there's a lot of vision to a larger organization, the visionary part of the integrator. There's a lot to envision what team we need. And so Julie sometimes has pushed me to take risks, sometimes that I'm fearful to take. So I think, probably a lot of times people perceive maybe an integrator as going, let me rope off the playground you get to play in. When sometimes she's like, you see this path? I've actually paved the road for you. Now hit the gas, but go that way. I know you, and I know what you're trying to do. I'm paving the road. Don't go in the wilderness anymore. You keep going over there and bumping, and you keep destroying the car. So that's not giving us the value you want. So she's like, this is the road. I've cut down all the trees for you. Now hit the gas. And then so it's really ultimate freedom is really what it is. Now, I didn't think it was that at first. I was like, stop hemming me in, man. And we had some hot words about that, but turns out I was wrong.
Yeah, I guess the analogy of the fenced-in yard kind of leaves the impression of this is the size of the yard for forever. And then once I'm done exploring the yard, there's nothing else that I get to do. But that's you're true. Saying, she's saying, no, we're going to explore a yard, but it's going to be in this direction, and there's a bigger yard over there. I need your vision, your drive to plow us forward that direction.
That's right. Yeah. And in a sense, as an integrator, she knows me. And so I do much bigger things because of the road that she paves. And so she kind of pushes me because what she's doing is she's really operationally and technically thinking about the risks too. It's like, do we have the team to do that? Do we have the infrastructure, the software, or the money? And when she believes we do, man, she'll want to take risks that'll make me nervous. But I've come to trust that. I'm like, she knows the bank account, so she knows the people.
You were making risks with no financial statements. The books weren't reconciled. It was just like, so let's see if this works out.
Yeah. Well, I haven't reconciled my accounting, so I don't know if we have cash, but you know what? I'm going to see what happens. And that turns out to not work a lot of times. So that can get you in a lot of trouble. But when Julie starts technically pouring down a foundation in a company and you start to really know what you can do, that's when she's like, she wants a bigger playground, bigger. But a great integrator only wants what the visionary is trying to achieve. Mm-hmm. And when you talk to a real integrator, and Julie and I coach visionaries and integrators, and we can always tell, we can spot integrators now, we know them, and you'll hear them. They always say, I'm trying to figure out what they want, and I know I'm successful when they're pulling off the vision. Mm-hmm. That is a real common phrase integrators say. They're not trained to say it. They just do it automatically. Mm-hmm. They know they're in this place, and they're like, if I'm going to get in the side seat of that visionary, we're going to go some crazy places. And that's been Julie's ultimate desire, which is, what's your vision? It's going to happen. Now, maybe not yet, maybe not that fast, maybe not that direction, but the vision's going to happen. Let's see how to do it. So that's really what has allowed me to have any form of success.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, Jason, I appreciate your time. We could talk for a whole nother episode. I know, because we have over the years, and you've got 30 years in your career ahead of you. We'll have more times to dig into this stuff for sure.
We will. This is exciting. Thank you for having me, Barrett. So cool.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So I want to end my show. I've got a lightning round of questions that I want to ask my guests. All right. So just one to two sentences, no embellishment, no backstory, nothing like that.
Okay. We don't have time for that.
So lightning round, coffee or tea?
Coffee. Always beans, ground.
Freshly ground beans.
Freshly ground. I don't want already pre-ground coffee. No.
Okay. Pie or cake?
Cake.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
What is a common belief that you see among entrepreneurs that you would challenge?
Yeah. That I want to be an entrepreneur to have my freedom. Freedom can be very elusive, and it's not exactly what it is. Freedom, but it's not what you thought.
Good. Awesome. Your favorite holiday?
Christmas time.
Christmas?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Are you a morning person or a night person?
I work a good bit, so I'm probably both, but I would label myself a morning person.
Okay. All right. If you could pick one thing that your successor, and not having a successor in your firm necessarily, but just somebody who's following in your footsteps would remember you for, what would that be?
Whoa, Barrett. Like one sentence. Come on, that's like a massive question.
This is for the next podcast episode.
Yeah, that's next right. Yeah. So no, I would want a successor to remember me as having cared about people enough that those people's lives were changed. They were encouraged enough that they were moved forward more because they were in a relationship with me. I would want the successor going, he did that for me, and I saw him do that for other people, sometimes at his own cost. That's what I would want them to know that I was committed to and wanted.
Awesome. I know you always have sources of creativity. Where are you finding creativity right now?
Yeah. Well, I always have to have a lot of books, so I'm always reading a bunch of books. Mastery by Robert Greene, Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara, however you say his last name. So books, trying new things. I'm always being challenged in my career. Coaching, those kind of things. We're always with entrepreneurs. Probably 3 or 4 times a week, we're in some kind of coaching session, consulting with people trying to build businesses through value. And so I gain a lot of insights and creativity from other people, other business owners.
Awesome. So what's one thing coming up? Not for Thriveal, because I don't want you to spoil it for me, but one thing coming up in the next year within Blumer CPAs that's got you really excited to try out? Well,
probably a couple things. So we're looking at starting to make some small acquisitions. So we're interested that in the firm. We did one of those last year, a solopreneur firm. So we're interested in a little bit of expansion that way. And a lot of people in our industry do that regularly, where you can learn a lot about that. And I'm interested in a little bit of expansion that way. I do get to go speak in Brazil, which is going to be pretty cool. So I'm going to go speak to a large accounting conference down in Brazil. They're in Portuguese. They talk in Portuguese. So I think they're going to interpret me when I'm doing the keynote. So that's pretty creative. I love to travel and be put in positions where I can learn new things. So I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. Where can people find out more about you and hear more of your thoughts?
Yeah. So if you hit BlumerCPAs.com or Thriveal.com, which is THRIVEAL.com, and then hit our YouTube channels. That's where a lot of my content is. Our podcasts are. So we put a good bit of content out on our YouTube channel. So that's it.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jason. I appreciate you being on the Artist Succession.
Cool. Thanks, Barrett, for having me. It was a treat being with you.
Thank you, sir.